Okay, great. All right, Shailja, take it away. Shailja Mathur is an RDN that I know very well, that I worked with for a number of years. She is a senior program coordinator, soon to be a family and community science health educator at Rutgers. And she works a lot with the Southeast Indian community. So Shailja, take it away.
Thank you, Judy. And I just wanted to recognize Judy has been a longtime mentor, being a fellow dietitian, and one of the reasons that I am a dietitian today. I have worked almost 22 years for Rutgers, and I enjoy doing this work, a lot of chronic disease prevention, but also other topics that we do in the community. So before we get into the presentation, I wanted to talk about the Rutgers Cooperative Extension being an affirmative action equal opportunity employer. So we fall under the umbrella of Rutgers Cooperative Extension, or RCE, and we are open to all without regard to race, color, origin, gender, gender identity, religion, age, height, weight, disability, political beliefs, sexual orientation, marital status, family status, or veteran status. I'm expected to read that statement. So with that, we go to the next slide. Just wanted to introduce you to the Rutgers Cooperative Extension structure. If you are not aware of who we are the outreach arm of Rutgers University. We are working in partnership with the County Board of Chosen Commissioners and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, which is NIFA at United States Department of Agriculture, and of course, Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. So we are one of the three departments, Family and Community Health Sciences, which formerly was Home Economics. And today we're going to talk about spices. So basically spices in Indian cooking. But before I go on to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of Indian spices, and I invite Judy to cover that with you today.
Okay, so did a little bit of research and it was interesting. So it's actually archaeological research that indicates that hunters and gatherers wrapped meat in leaves of bushes, and doing that, they actually accidentally discovered that could flavor the meat. So we're going back to historic times, so it's sort of interesting. Some of these things, how did they develop? How did people know, like fire and things like that? They were accidents, and they, realized, oh, okay. So over the years, spices were used as a way to mask unpleasant tastes and odors of food, and I think that that is something that people are somewhat aware of. And later also to keep food fresh. And ancient civilizations also used spices and herbs for medicinal purposes. And of course, Shailja is going to be talking about that during the presentation. She'll be talking about the health benefits. But ancient civilizations, however, they didn't distinguish. They knew that there were health benefits, but they didn't necessarily take things for that reason. They sort of didn't distinguish between herbs and spices for flavoring and for health. Spices have also traditionally been used as in food preservation, and it's long been known that spices slow down the growth of bacteria. And there are many places in India where people still preserve their food using this, probably around the world, but we're talking about Indian spices, using this technique due to the lack of availability of electricity and hence refrigeration. So spices have been cultivated for centuries. Once they were actually a form of currency, specifically pepper was a really big one. And the spice trade was one of the largest industries before the Crusades, and it was traded along the Silk Road, which you might or might not have heard of at some point in your schooling. And that connected Asia. The trade was a trade route that connected Asia with Mediterranean Europe. Before the Crusades, Asian spices in Europe were costly, and mainly the wealthy and the royalty were able to purchase them. But after the Crusades, there was more international exchange of Asian spices, and so it became less expensive. Spices and herbs have been used in India for thousands of years for both culinary and health purposes. And Indian spices are, and that's, you can see some information there on the slides, are, I think it's paper, ground from a variety of plants that are native the Indian subcontinent and the surrounding South Asian area. There's actually evidence that spices indigenous to India were cultivated as early as the 8th century BC, Babylonia. And doing a lot of research on some of the foods like coffee and chocolate and tea, Babylonia, this comes into almost everything. It was a major seat of culture and civilization, and a lot of foodways came out of their foodways. So Indian spice farming developed throughout the subcontinent, starting about 2,000 years before Christ. And India's success at growing spices is largely based on the physical attributes of the climate. The environment is perfect for growing spices as a high humidity, a range of climatic conditions that produce ideal conditions for cultivation in a wide variety of spices, but the ones that are most common to us are turmeric, cinnamon, black pepper, clove, coriander, and red chili. And many of these are native to the subcontinent, but others actually arrived during that period of time and were not necessarily native, but have become part of the native crop. And today, India actually produces more than 2 million tons of spices every year, one of the world's largest exporters. 40% of the world's spice trade comes from India. And scientists, of course, view the spices, we said, as good for health. And Shailja will go into all the details, but they're rich in minerals and other antioxidants and polyphenols. She'll discuss that more in depth. And some spices, such as cloves, fennel, and cardamom, are used as mouth-refreshing agents. And thank you, Shailja, because from going with you to Indian restaurants, I've noted that on the way out, or on the way in, on the checkout, there's usually a bowl of something to aid digestion and prevent heartburn, like fennel or cloves or cardamom. So I knew what that was. And of course, it's a really delicious way to get some of these healthy nutrients into your diet. And if you're interested in more detailed history, you can actually go to the McCormick Science Institute. They have a history of spices. And Indian Life was another site that I went to. But if you just Google history of Indian spices, if you want more information, you'll be able to get plenty of that. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Shailja, or?
No, that was perfect. Thank you, Judy. I think that it's a really interesting history of the spices and where we start. And I'm going to dive right into some of the spices that we picked. There are plenty of spices. So I have a whole cabinet full of spices, but I picked a few just which I thought were really important to talk about, and we're going to go one by one for each, and then I have a little show and tell at the end. I'm going to talk about cooking and storing the spices, and what you need to do to have them if you feel like you need to use them in your cooking. They do add some aroma and flavors, so let's start with the first one. So cardamom is also known as Elateria cardamomum. So it is from the cardamom tree. And these are little small, what you see inside these green pods are black seeds, which are known as the cardamom seeds. There are two different kinds of cardamom. So there's like a large black one, and then this is a green one. The larger one, the black one, is used most for savory dishes, and this green one is used more for a dessert. So cardamom in Indian spice or culinary place has the same space that cinnamon has in other desserts with the Western world. So instead of cinnamon, we use cardamom for flavoring all our desserts. Now, not only is it with a very small, very, very strong, sweet smell, which you might have experienced with tea or foods that we cook or any Indian dessert like a rice pudding, cardamom actually has these other very important health-related effects that it affects in a very positive way. And there have been research studies that have actually studied this. So these seeds of cardamom have polyphenols. You might have heard the word phytonutrients or phytochemicals or nutraceuticals, they all mean the same thing. And the type of polyphenols that are found here are known as flavonoids. Now, these flavonoids or flavanol rich foods, there are others other than cardamom, like green tea, black tea, sweet cherries, the purple grapes, blackberries, raspberries, they all have flavonols, right? Now, these flavonols antioxidant properties and they might benefit heart health. So the antioxidant activity is very important because many of our normal body functions and outside environment like smoke or smoking or stress, they all result in formation of these free radicals within our body. Now, these free radicals actually damage our cells, and to avoid this cell damage, which can lead to diseases like cancer and diabetes, we need to have more antioxidants in our consumption, right, in our diet. So one of them can be cardamom and all of these other things that I mentioned, the other foods I mentioned. I want to mention a random control trial, like an RCT study that was done with type 2 patients or people living with diabetes. It was a small study, so it only had about 82 participants. But in that study, they gave each participant, they had a control group and a trial group, and they gave these participants 3 grams of cardamom every day for 10 weeks. And when they checked on their inflammation, their hypertension, everything showed a positive effect on their the blood pressure was down. The flavonols were found to stimulate the secretion of insulin. So that led to lowering blood glucose levels. And of course, they were all of these participants were also obese, and it seemed to have helped them to reduce weight as well. But understand that I'm only talking about a very small study, and there were only 80 participants, and it was only a 10-week study. So most of these spices have not been studied in large longitudinal studies, but yet in the small studies, all the studies that I looked around had good positive effects.
I just want to interrupt 1 second, because this is one of those cases where, yes, these studies are now beginning to confirm what 2,000 years of use in Southeast Asian and Indian culture have proven. And that's true for a lot of herbs and spices. Research is supporting what a lot of cultures have known all along.
Absolutely correct. And they have been eating it, and that's why there was a lower incidence of cancer in some of these populations, depending on what their eating habits were. Like the Mediterranean diet, we have so much research that backs that diet. We have so much research about colon cancer. Why was it so low in some of these populations? Or if you think about the blue zones, it's exactly right, Judy. You're right on point that, the studies are coming now, but populations who have been consuming these have seen these effects for many years. So in cooking, there are many Indian and Indian-inspired dishes that call for cardamom, and it could be curry dishes, or it could be kheer, which is an Indian rice pudding. And all of you, I hope, have heard about masala chai. So the chai actually, yes. So the chai actually means just some of these spices, not just cardamom. But sometimes I make my tea just with cardamom in it. So, but there's like a combination of these spices that we use to make tea. And once we use these spices, it becomes, instead of tea, it's called chai, which is masala chai. Masala means spices in the Indian language. And then, of course, we have different blends of spices that we make by grinding some of these combination of spices, and they also include cardamom. But cardamom has like a sweeter aroma, and it gives a lot of to, in the last 5 years, I've seen a lot of use of cardamom even in the American baked goods. You'll see a lot in Trader Joe's, you'll see a lot in Whole Foods. Like they have these cookies that are cardamom flavored. They have like different things that they've been very creatively using this flavor, bread pudding, cheesecake. And that used to not be the case 5 years ago, but suddenly it's very popular. Then we move on to cinnamon. Now, cinnamon, I hope that you have heard about cinnamon because it has been in the news a lot. So cinnamon is a spice that is made from the inner bark of the cinnamomum tree. And there are two kinds of cinnamon. One is the cassia cinnamon, and the other is the Ceylon cinnamon. Now, the cassia is the regular cinnamon, whereas the Ceylon is the one that is known as the true cinnamon, and it's a little bit more expensive, but it has a lighter and a less bitter taste. But there is a compound called coumarin in the cinnamon. Now, this coumarin is a lot more in the cassia cinnamon rather than the Ceylon. But one thing to understand is that this chemical, if consumed in excess, can cause liver damage, and it also increases the risk of cancer. So the tolerable amount is about 0.05 milligram per pound weight. And if you do it per kg weight, it becomes 5 milligram, right? So about 5 milligram per day for a 130-pound person is the tolerable limit. And if you look at cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, the cassia cinnamon, actually has anywhere from 7 to 15 milligrams of this coumarin. So it is important that if you really like to consume a lot of cinnamon, try to use the Ceylon cinnamon because that has only trace amount of this coumarin. But if you see, it has antimicrobial function, antioxidant, we just talked about, anti-tumor, and has cardiovascular health benefits. Many of the research studies that I saw actually were done for it to treat type 2 diabetes. Now, there is a very, very positive relationship with cinnamon lowering blood glucose. So anybody living with diabetes or pre-diabetes can use this as a supplement to lower their average blood sugar. The only thing is that you need to be careful with the dosage and where you're buying your cinnamon. So it has to be sourced from a safe place, and that it does reduce inflammation, and it reduces oxidation, it reduces blood sugar. And the Ceylon cinnamon definitely is the one that is preferred over the cassia one, which is more the regular one. Yes, Judy.
I just wanted to interrupt for 1 second and say that probably if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, you're going to be working with a healthcare professional. So if you're going to take any of these things, other than like just shaking it on, like I use it in baked apples and things like that, it's good to check with a healthcare professional if you have one available, and they could guide you on amounts. Like, for instance, I know that Shailja does diabetic education, so she's a good person to contact about stuff like that. Anyway, I just wanted to interject.
Thank you, Judy. But it is important with all these supplements, I think, while you're talking about it, I think it is important to understand that none of these supplements have been tested or approved by like a FDA or anybody in the United States. It's a huge billion-dollar industry, and we don't know what we are getting. So be very careful when you're supplementing and work with your healthcare professional, because they also need to know how these supplements might interact with the medications that you are on, and you might need to, tweak it or tweak the dosage or eat them at a different time or things like that. So they need to be aware of what you are taking as supplements. So cinnamon actually is also one of the ingredients which is used in the masala chai. And it is one of the 5 basic whole spices that we use in Indian cooking. And it generally has a very strong taste. So oftentimes I put a whole piece when I'm cooking savory things like rice or a curry. I would just put a whole piece, and before I serve it, I pull the piece out. So the flavor has just cooked as the food has cooked. And in other things, like in making tea or masala chai, I would coarsely ground it in a mortar pestle and then use it, or simply shake my shaker and use a little bit of it. Now with these, you can have all kinds of cinnamon. So you can buy the ground cinnamon, or you can have just the bark pieces, or you could have the bark rolls. Any of these, all of these work. So this is really one of the overlapping spices that's used both in Indian cooking, and all kinds of other cultures have used cinnamon in their cooking. Then we come to cloves. Now these, I'm sure you have heard about clove oil being used in toothpaste. It has been very effectively used for toothache.
Right. When
And
I was young, they used to put it on eating babies' gums.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they still do. Like if you are somebody who doesn't want to take medications and you have toothache, then you can still have a piece of clove in your mouth. Or clove oil is actually very, very strong. So you have to mix it with some other oil before you apply it, because it could almost burn your gums. So be very careful. It has something that's called eugenol, and that's again a phytochemical, which has many, many benefits. So the top one, of course, is analgesic, which it gives pain relief. So it's almost like anesthesia. So it kind of numbs your gums, or numbs wherever you apply it. And so it goes straight to the nerves, and it kind of gives you relief from pain. Again, this cloves are also an antioxidant. They have anti-cancer agent, antidepressant, spasmodic. So you know how people get some spasms, sometimes muscle spasm or abdominal spasm. Cloves have seemed to help with those spasms. So it have also been used for certain spasmodic diseases where people get into spasm and they're not able to shake it off, where clove has been used to help them shake that off. It's antifungal, antiviral, antiseptic. So I have to tell you the story where, when we had COVID, a lot of Indian families started to cook a lot of these spices and made a little concoction that they were drinking because of all these properties that they knew. And some of this is so old because India has used these spices for thousands of years. There is Ayurveda, which also uses a lot of these spices. It's as old as Chinese medicine. And so very similar things like using all these herbal teas that Chinese use. The Indian Ayurveda has a place for the spices where they use these spices for treating a lot of these diseases.
Oh, by the way, I just quickly wanted to mention that last item about it working against antibiotic resistant, like MMRS, which is a really interesting thing, because there are some, they have no antibiotics that work well against it. So that it worked, clove worked well when other antibiotics did not. So that was interesting to me.
That was really a big thing, because we are seeing a lot more of antibiotic resistance now. So some of these ordinary spices can have really magical powers. We feel that they sometimes work when other things actually are not. But in Indian cooking, they are often used to give it kind of a spicy aroma. They're kind of bitter if you put them in your mouth. So you can imagine how strong that clove oil is. But even if you put one clove in your mouth and just keep it lasts for a very long time, and you can feel the spiciness of it on your tongue. It's you can probably use it to warm like spice cider, and they are used to give that zing to Indian meat or rice or vegetables. So it almost like garlic, it has a very strong flavor, and it is used in the what we call garam masala, which means a concoction of lots of different spices, which we use as a finishing spice for a lot of dishes. Yes, Judy.
I just remember that, Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a time when people used to make ham that way. They used to take the ham and they used to stick.
Oh, yes.
Yes, all kinds of cloves all over the ham. So there you go. You know, so.
Yep.
Hey,
So,
Barbara.
and so hi, Barbara. Now they also do that for when they're cooking Indian meat. So when a lot of the lamb dishes, when you meat, you just put all these whole spices on top. You beat them up and then you marinate pretty much in the spices, and then you add your yogurt. So it kind of puts all the flavor of the spices into the meat, and it has been used. And that's why some of these meats are cooked for a very long time. They're marinated for a very long time, and they're very, very flavorful. So it's a very different kind of cooking, but it definitely brings the flavor of the spices into the food. Then I wanted to talk about coriander, and I'm sure everybody has used cilantro. Now, the coriander is actually the seeds of the cilantro plant. Linalool, which is found in coriander, has been reported to be the main substance that kind of gives it this therapeutic value. So it is supposed to be very neuroprotective. So all the central nervous system diseases, it's supposed to be a very protective agent. And so if you include coriander or cilantro in your cooking, not only do you get that flavor, but it is supposed to be very neuroprotective. So just chewing on roasted coriander has found to help with anxiety. So if you just roast some and keep it with you, and then when you feel anxious, you can actually put it in your mouth and just simply chew it.
I don't think there's anybody that could use that in this day and age, but anyway, sorry.
Yes, everybody could use it. I think I keep cardamom in my pocketbook all the time. Cardamom also helps with anxiety, and it helps with digestion. So I have a little bottle that I keep in my pocketbook, and and it's a mouth freshener as well. It kind of cleans up your mouth and gives it a different nice smell. Then of course pain relief, and the potent antioxidant property provides a key mechanism that makes it kind of protective against not only neurodegenerative diseases, but metabolic syndrome as well as cancer, right? So you want to, Donna and Barbara, you know what metabolic syndrome is, or do you want me to cover that?
Yeah. Maybe just touch on it quickly.
Yeah. So metabolic syndrome is actually when you have, it's a condition where you have at least 3 or 5 things. One is when you're overweight, you have hypertension, lower LDL.
It's the bad cholesterol.
And yes, high triglycerides. Just 3 of these 5 things can put you in a metabolic syndrome. When you get into a metabolic syndrome, and abdominal fat, so your large girth, whether you're male or female, if you have abdominal fat, you have hypertension, triglycerides, lower HDL, or just 3 of these 5 things can actually put you into metabolic syndrome. And when you are in metabolic syndrome, that means your body's has a lot of inflammation, and then it results in inflammation-related diseases like cancer, diabetes, and all those. So very important to treat metabolic syndrome. So cilantro is what you see as leaves, and then the seeds are what you see them as, we call them coriander. Now, coriander, we don't use them without roasting. So the seeds, if you grow your own cilantro, it seeds very quickly. It's a very moody plant. If you plant cilantro, you're only going to get it for maybe 3 weeks and then it starts to seed. So you have to be very careful and keep trimming it so that you keep getting the leaves and it doesn't go into seed. But if you do get into the seed form, you can use the seed by roasting and grinding them. So it's this coriander seeds are actually the biggest part of the curry masala, which is the garam masala that we use, which is the base of Indian cooking. And now they've started to use it in many different beverages and cakes and cookies as well. But in the Indian cooking scene, this is only used for savory things. Cumin. Now, cumin has been very widely used in traditional medicine and effectively has been used to treat both diabetes and cancer. So there are many, many studies that are coming out of many Southeast Asian countries, not just India, where they're using cumin and cumin extracts to treat these diseases. It has also been shown to reduce blood cholesterol and triglycerides, which is part of the metabolic syndrome. And many RCT trials have been done where they have seen very good results and they've been found to be helpful with weight loss. One very big thing about cumin is that you can use it in many, many different ways, and it's very, very high in fiber content. So as Americans, we already are very low consumers of fiber. So just adding cumin in the cooking helps with adding that fiber piece. But if you ever try to use cumin, you can use it just as dry as it is, or you can roast it dry and then grind it. Absolutely different aroma it has once it's roasted. So all for our yogurt dishes, you know, if you go to a Greek restaurant, they make this cucumber and yogurt dish or satski. Try roasted cumin on top. It gives a very fusion kind of a kick to that dish, but it makes it very aromatic. And of course, this is one of the spices that's used most in Indian cooking. I think I use cumin in every single dish that I prepare, like all the vegetables, all the lentils, anything that I make, the cumin goes in, sometimes onion, garlic, ginger go in, but I always start with cumin. And while we're talking about cumin, I wanted to talk about a process called tempering. So if you look at Indian recipes, you're going to see that they use a process that's called tempering, where the tempering can be done as a finishing of a dish, or it can be done in the beginning. Normally in Indian cooking, we do, depending on the dish, in the beginning, if you do it, we heat some oil, and I suggest you use some kind of oil which has a higher smoking point, so it has to be hot oil, right? So if you heat the oil and then you put your spices one after the other individually into it and allow the oil to take the flavor, and then you cook whatever food you're cooking in that oil. So it gets the flavor of all the spices. Now, when you do it as a finishing thing, one good example would be yogurt rice. So what we do is we cook the rice separately, we mix it with yogurt. Now this dish is considered a cooling dish and is used in the summertime. And then what we do is we temper some mustard seeds and cumin seeds, and then we pour that hot oil over this, and that gives the flavor to the cool or the cold dish, which is the yogurt and rice. And you can see that it is often paired with mustard dishes, but once it is ground, it has a completely, what you see in the picture, completely different aroma to it. Now, FENUGREEK is another one like cinnamon that has been studied a lot in the last almost decade, almost 15 years. And the most that it has been seen effective is actually with reducing blood sugar. And in Indian cooking, we use FENUGREEK seeds as a seed form, as a ground seed form, as well as the leaves that you see as leaves. We get these leaves in any Indian ethnic store, and we make many, many different things from it. With the fenugreek seeds also have been used to make a kind of a tea. So you soak them overnight, you cook them, and that water is given to new mothers. And it has been found that it increases breast milk supply. And so there has been a lot of study on it that it has helped to women to increase their supply of breast milk. It definitely lowers blood lipid levels like cholesterol and triglycerides, and it is a powerful antioxidant. So it has many other pharmacological effects, but those that are listed here are plenty. And fenugreek has been used for many, many years, not just with the tempering, but people who have diabetes that of Southeast Asian origin actually have this as like a powder form. And if you talk to your doctor is always going to tell you, if you're going to do that, then we need to fine tune your medication. So anytime you're using these spices, and if you're using them more than a little sprinkle, make sure that you are talking to your healthcare provider what you're doing with them, because these supplements are pretty powerful with some of these actions. And when you make fenugreek is one of the seeds that we use basically for, there's typical combination of spices that we use, and India is very, very diverse. So different states use different spices. So in the north and the central India, fenugreek is used for typical vegetables, that they'll use it for eggplant, they'll use it for cauliflower, they'll use it for all these gas-producing vegetables. And it seems to help with the digestion of these lentils and these gas-producing vegetables. And then we come to garlic. Garlic, of course, is not just an Indian spice. It's used all over the world. And one of the research studies that I read talked about how you actually cut the garlic into small pieces and leave it for 10 minutes for it to increase its antioxidant value before you use it in cooking. And so it has been shown to help a lot with reducing high blood pressure. There's lots of studies for that, as well as for diabetes. And there are some studies that are ongoing for cancer and heart disease, but it is another one of those which is a very strong antioxidants, is anti-inflammatory. And because of these properties, if you don't have it in your pantry, you should start using some garlic. Garlic is really has a lot of good functions. And whether you're Italian, whether you're Indian, whatever your ethnicity, yeah,
it tastes good.
You can use garlic. We use garlic in many different ways. We roast it. We also use a lot of raw garlic in our salads. So some of the salads that we make, actually, we just chop garlic and give it that zing. It's kind of very strong and spicy if you try to eat raw garlic, but it is an essential part of Indian cooking. And just like green chili, garlic also gives like a very strong kind of a hot flavor to food. So it's used, like we cook it in ghee, which is clarified butter, and keep it to put on bread, just like garlic bread. You can see there's the garlic naan, where we're using the clarified butter with garlic to give that flavor. And then, of course, we use it in all our curries. Garlic is an important part. And then ginger. Ginger definitely has backing of research for helping with nausea and vomiting, especially during pregnancy. And it has very, very positive effect on digestive health. So if you have heartburn, if you have difficulty, or your enzymes are not as active and you're having difficulty with digesting, or just common bloating, a little piece of ginger has been shown to actually help people that have a lot of digestive issues, and it increases the biomarkers for colorectal cancer risk, which means a lot of people who eat ginger in their daily foods have actually found it to be very protective against colorectal cancer. And you will note that the South Asian population has the lowest incidence of colorectal cancer. We have not been able to pinpoint which thing exactly is causing it, but it seems that their consumption of these spices and a lot of this onion, garlic, and ginger combination is helping them with these polyphenols, where the expression of these biomarkers is such that their incidence of especially colon cancer is very low. Skin cancer and colon cancer, 2 of these have been shown to be very low in this population. In India, ginger is basically used in many different ways. We use that as raw. It's also part of your masala chai. We grate it and use it in making vegetables and cooking our lentils and pulses. We pickle it. So I use raw ginger, raw turmeric, and raw peppers and carrots. I chop them and I pickle them in lemon. And I use it almost as an antioxidant, a teaspoon of that every day. And then a lot of Chinese, Japanese, and those other countries, sushi, Thailand,
sushi, right.
They use the shavings of ginger as a mouth as freshener, as well as you change your one sushi to the other, you put a little piece of ginger in your mouth so that it cleans up your palate. And then, of course, I'm sure you've seen the ginger candy, which is what a lot of pregnant women carry as they go through the nausea of pregnancy. So a fairly effective spice that has been used for many thousands of years. And then turmeric, oh my God. So I did put this at the end, but it is an important spice that has a lot of research and studies backing now. So there's evidence that it aids in inflammatory conditions. I remember my grandmother, when we had these cuts and bruises, would oftentimes do the first aid using turmeric. So she would cook turmeric in oil and then cool it down, and then we would get that as first aid. And we don't remember you using Neosporin. Turmeric was what was at home and what was used. So it definitely helps with inflammatory conditions. So the swelling would go down, there would be no infection. It has many, many different functions. But one thing to remember is that in order to increase the bioavailability of turmeric, it should be combined with what is known as piperine, which is found in chili or black pepper. And once you have the turmeric with the with piperine, and you need a little source of fat. So if you've heard about the golden milk,
yes,
that's what it has. It has the fat from the milk. It has the piperine. It has like a pinch of the black pepper, and then turmeric. And of course, we use a lot of saffron in the golden milk as well. But that's a drink you get when you actually fall down, or you've had some kind of a thing where you think there could be some, swelling or reddening next day. You can use that as a drink, as first aid before you get yourself to the ER or to a doctor's office. So turmeric is also the spice that gives the yellow color to most Indian dishes. So all our lentils and all our vegetables, they look yellow because turmeric is used in most every savory dish that we make. And in many different states, it's used in different ways. And sometimes, particularly in fish, like sometimes it also takes away the fishy smell. So you kind of marinate with all the spices and turmeric, and you leave the fish in certain states where, it kind of removes the fishy smell from fish. And here's a table of some of the popular Indian spices. In the interest of time, we were not able to cover all of them, but you can see that those are the Indian names for all the spices. The star anise.
I just want to say that this will be going up on YouTube, or if you want to contact me, I'll be happy to send you this slide. So if you're interested in this slide.
I wanted to leave you with some links for these recipes. Tarla Dalal is a very well-known Indian chef, and she makes a lot of healthy recipes. You can go to that website and look at that. And then I gave you 3 healthy versions of these. The first is the chicken shawarma salad. The second is an Indian chickpeas with poached eggs, and then khatti dal. Khatti means sour. Dal is lentils, and so that's a version of lentils, which is part of all our Indian plates, because that is the source of protein for people who are vegetarian. And with that, we come to the end of our slides. These are the references that we've used. It's 7:21. I'm going to stop sharing, and I have some show and tell. I can show you those, and then I will open the floor to questions. So this is what is called a spice box. You will find one of these in every Indian home, because remember how I talked about tempering? So these are the basic spices that we use for tempering. So every time we put some oil, you can see this is the cumin, this is the FENUGREEK seeds, this is the anise seeds, this is turmeric, this is my cloves. So all of these are what I usually would use to flavor my food. So sometimes I would use just one, sometimes I would use a combination of those. Then a lot of our cooking, we use a lot of these. So I keep 2 in my kitchen, because I use different spices for my desserts, and I don't want to mix it with the other one where I could use it for garlic and ginger. And then I don't want that smell in my sweeter dishes. So I use this for my desserts, and this is for my regular cooking. And then I wanted to show you these 2 kinds of cinnamon. So you can see the Ceylon cinnamon and the cassia, that both of them are there, and they have different functions. So I keep both in my cabinet. We talked about cloves. Good idea to keep some cloves, not even if you don't want to use it in cooking. It's a good first aid for things like toothache or any kind of ache. This is my cardamom, which was the first spice that I talked about. Now, this is the black cardamom, which is a slightly larger and used more for savory. This is the green one that I talked about, and both of them have black seeds inside that. So these are both varieties of cardamom. And then, of course, this is coriander seeds. So I use these coriander seeds to kind of even plant my cilantro in my garden. So you just soak them and you sprinkle them, and you get the cilantro in your garden, in your pots, wherever you want. And now the floor is yours. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We have 6 minutes. Yep.
Do we have any questions?
Donna, Barbara, anything? Have you used any? Have you used any of these spices?
Yes, I use all of them.
Oh, fantastic, Donna. What do you do, like Indian type cooking, or do you use them like a fusion spice?
Yeah, like fusion, yes, yes. But I like Indian cooking. My one question is, do you use herbs or
I
just
do.
spices?
We use both. So the herbs are usually we use as finishers. So like I would use dill, I would use rosemary, I would use cilantro, I use mint. So those are basically finishers, but
Yeah.
depending on like the dish, they might call for like mint in a garbanzo bean dish. That's the combination. If you try to use them, like you can use dry mint or fresh mint, and there are different combinations that are used in India, and I kind of use different herbs for different dishes that I prepare. Definitely done a lot of herbs also.
Okay.
Barbara was asking about the golden milk. Do you want to touch on that? She asked, where is that available, or do you make that?
There are lots of recipes on the internet, and if you just Google golden milk, you should be able to get it. I make my own. I do make it with turmeric, and I add the piperin, and I use a little very hot 1/4 of a teaspoon of the clarified butter. I put the piperin and the turmeric in it. And then in my golden milk, I use some ground almond also. So it just gives it a new flavor, but you don't have to use that. Any more questions? So Donna, what do you make with your herbs? Which is the one that which of these spices is the one you use the most?
Cinnamon. I eat cinnamon almost every day.
That's fantastic.
Ginger, I cook with ginger and turmeric.
Nice.
I just recently, I boiled brown rice and put the cinnamon stick.
And that sounds delicious.
Yeah, it was. It was like, tasted so different and so good.
If you have star anise in your kitchen, boil your rice with that next time.
Okay, star anise. Yeah, that I don't use.
Star anise gives a very nice flavor to rice. Just while you're cooking, just throw one small one, and then you can just take it out before you serve, and it gives a really nice, very rich aroma to the rice.
Now, just another question. You were talking about, is it the oil of cloves would help, like with the toothache?
So not
do they
so you have to. They do. So you can get clove extract. You can get a clove oil. I will tell you, it is quite expensive and it is very strong. But what you can do is just take a clove and put it in your mouth. And that helps. And you just keep it in your mouth, just keep sucking on it. I have done it for hours. It lasts for a very long time. It's also a great remedy if you have a cough. And if you just put a piece of clove in your mouth, and it kind of helps with your coughing. I have had times when I'm presenting and I cannot shake off this cough. And then I just put a piece of one clove in my mouth, and it kind of helps with the cough too.
Wow.
There's something in the juice that really helps.
And was cloves also the thing for anti-anxiety?
It was. And the other thing there was ginger. Both help with anxiety.
Well, if there are no more questions, I guess we can, I will stop the recording, but I want to remind everybody that this will be up on YouTube, and for Barbara, for you, because, the first few you missed, or Barbara, you can email me and I can send you the slides for the first few. But I think that you would benefit from hearing, Shailja's wise expertise on this. But I want to thank everybody for coming, and, just keep watching the newsletter and the email list to, for things that are coming up. So.
Okay. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.